Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores. Of course, y'all know I had to wear the clothes of some winners for this video. I told y'all. But as far as the Commanders go, which is why we're recording this video, we have a lot to talk about, man. I mean, of course, Ron Rivera Martin Mayhew are the masters of saying a lot without saying nothing. Using a lot of words, but not saying a lot of important things. That's just their thing. But there's still a lot to take from this overall, because Rivera and Mayhew talked about re-signing Payne, Heinicke, and Kam Curl. They talked about the QB search and Sam Howell. They said that they wanted joint practices this training camp. That's huge. I've been screaming for us to get some joint practices in the offseason. Also, they talked about O-line problems, specifically center, which is something I've been talking about for the past few videos and live streams. They also talked Scott Turner, and the way Ron Rivera talked about Scott Turner's on the way out. Like, he gave you the bare minimum. We're going to talk about that. Also, they talk about the Carson Wentz mistake. They don't own up to it, of course. They act like it didn't happen. They act like it was just straight up bad luck and not necessarily bad evaluation on their part. Of course, we got to dive into all of that and more. But before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up this Sunday. Even though the Commander season is over, does not mean the Street Scores season is over. Does not mean the Street Scores channel shuts down. Because y'all know, if anything, in the off season is when I do my best work. So this Sunday, I'm gonna do the call-in show while we're watching playoff games together, and we'll be talking about Commanders, we'll be talking about draft, free agency, all of that. And make sure you stay tuned for all of the content that I have coming out, because I have so many video ideas, so many film sessions for a lot of the draft picks I need to work on, and I will get that to y'all, of course. And of course, film sessions, especially the really detailed ones, are gonna be exclusive to my channel members. So man, make sure y'all stay tuned, man. This is literally when I do my best work, and I'm so excited, man, especially after the way my Georgia Bulldogs just handled business. But without further ado, let's get it. All right, so let's go ahead and just go basically in chronological order of what they said. First of all, Rivera said that they hope that they bring Daron Payne back. They feel like he should be a part of the future. Martin Mayhew said, quote, he played outstanding football for us this year, unquote, and said that it would be difficult to move on from him after what he did. Martin Mayhew also said, as far as discussing the possibility of retaining Daron Payne, quote, we have a plan and we definitely want to get him back, unquote. And then they were even asked about the franchise tag, and Rivera said that he wouldn't answer if the franchise tag is under consideration for Daron Payne. Mayhew said that he was outstanding this year, but won't get into negotiations at all. Moving on from Daron Payne, as far as QBs go, they said that they are in a much better place going into this offseason. I'm assuming that they mean because of how, because if they're saying that they're in a better place this offseason as far as quarterbacks go compared to last year, it's got to be because of how, because it's not like the veteran quarterback market is any better than last year. I mean, we're picking later this draft than we were last draft. Remember, we traded back to the 16th overall pick last draft. This draft, we have the 16th overall pick going in. So the only thing I can think of, it has to be how, because Taylor Heinicke and Carson Wentz aren't even on contract. They're unrestricted free agents. Well, Carson Wentz is going to get cut, and Taylor Heinicke is not on contract. He's an unrestricted free agent. So it can't be because of them. It literally only can be Sam Howell that they're talking about when they say that. Also, Mayhew did actually talk about Sam Howell personally. He said, quote, what we saw from him in practice was very good. It translated to the game, which doesn't always happen, unquote. And so, I mean, like I said, Sam Howell should have been starting since Carson Wentz got hurt, but we're not going to dive into that too much. I've already provided my reasons. It is what it is. And Mayhew said it's good to have him as an option to compare to what's out there going forward this offseason. So they're happy that they have Sam Howell in their back pocket when in doubt, but they may be looking to upgrade. They said that they may even go a veteran option if it comes up, which please don't. It's Sam Howell, or you get CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, or maybe even take a chance on Anthony Richardson, but nothing else. No veteran QB option. Don't bring in some random other backup. And if you bring Taylor Heinicke back, make sure it's for cheap money, maximum $3 million a year. Give them backup money, because that's what it'll be, a backup. That's it. Don't go for Derek Carr. Don't go for none of these other guys. Leave that alone. Go ahead and go Sam Howell, or draft a guy this draft. Give Sam Howell at least 2023, and if he isn't who we hoped he'd be, then you go get Caleb Williams James, Drake May, one of those guys in a better QB class anyway. So I think it's fairly simple. Moving on, Rivera said that he is open to bringing back Heinicke. They said that they liked a lot of what he did for us this year and the couple of years that he's been here, and they are interested in bringing him back, but they didn't go into too much detail about how much of a priority that is. They just simply said they would like to bring him back. That's it. But I mean, I already did my video yesterday. If you go check it out, if you haven't checked it out already, I brought up the calculations and projections that experts feel Commanders free agents will get. Daron Payne and Taylor Heinicke, how much money they think that they will get in the offseason from other teams, our team, whatever, annually. Make sure you go check that out, because the Heinicke one is a huge surprise. I'm like, oh, no, we not paying that. Also, Mayhew says that the O-line needs to get younger and that they had a lot of injuries and kept emphasizing our formula. For some reason, they have this formula. They had this plan that they keep wanting to follow. I haven't seen it, but Rivera doubled down on the center position and the injuries there, because I mean, these past couple of years the center position has been one of the most questionable parts of our team. It's just always somebody getting hurt. Martin Mayhew said that they need to get younger on the offensive line, and then Rivera jumped in and specifically mentioned the need to address center given all of the injuries at the spot. And I think that's really interesting, because like I said, I feel like Samuel Cosme is great at right guard. He has the potential to be another Brandon Sheriff there. Remember, Brandon Sheriff was drafted to be a tackle, moved in the right guard. You saw what happened. I think Samuel Cosme is the same thing, where he struggles dealing with pass protection on the outside, but if you put him in guard, give him a limited amount of space, put him in that phone booth, I think he can do crazy work over there, especially in the run game. And then Chris Paul, the way he looked that last game of the season, it looks like he should be our starting left guard. So figure out center, figure out right tackle, and let's keep it pushing, in my opinion. Mayhew said that they need to get younger on the O-line. Also, both he and Rivera said that they need to figure out why so many injuries along the front, especially at center. And we do need to figure that out. Like, I know our team in general gets hurt, but our offensive line has been one of the most hurt positions of our team, period. Center specifically. We went down to our 4th and 5th string center again 2 years in a row. That's crazy. Rivera said cornerback is still a position of interest, and solidifying the center spot is something they'll have to look at. Roullier and Tyler Larsen both suffered season-ending injuries in 2021 and 2022. They're both good players, but what does it matter if they can't get onto the field? Rivera was also asked about his evaluation of the depth and younger players in the secondary, and he said that there are plenty of players that they're curious about. He highlighted Christian Holmes and Percy Butler, especially Percy Butler from that last game he just had against the Cowboys. He made a lot of explosive plays there, a lot of potential there. I think he's a potential Bobby McCain with a higher ceiling. And so yeah, he talked about Christian Holmes and Percy Butler as far as players who showed up. Christian Holmes more so on special teams. And then he also mentioned Danny Johnson as a quality player and talked about him a little bit, because Danny Johnson stepped up big time. He looked terrible in the preseason, but he looked great for us at times later in the season when we needed him most, with Benjamin St-Juste hurt, William Jackson gone. Man, thank goodness for Danny Johnson, man. He made a huge difference for us. You got to bring him back no matter what. Rivera was also asked if the Commanders want to be a run-first team because of their QB spot or because of a philosophy. He said it's a philosophical belief, which kind of makes me more mad. I mean, either answer, I'm upset because I don't want to be a run-first team, but I felt like that made it even worse. Mayhew said earlier that he was happy with the 2-to-1 run-pass ratio in the final game. That's who we want to be. And that's his exact quote, and I don't like that. It's a passing league. I know I love Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson, but they're not the home run hitters like I guess Martin Mayhew and Ron Rivera believe them to be. Love them, but you need to be pass first in the NFL at this point, and you need to get a quarterback that can do that for you and an offensive coordinator that can do that for you as well. This run first, 2-to-1 run to pass is absolutely out of the question in my opinion. It was fun to watch. It was good, but there's a certain ceiling that it has. And if your defense is not playing at an elite level, and if your quarterback isn't in rhythm, it can come back to hurt you. And like we saw this year. Now, granted, Sam Howell with that run first scheme, if we would have started him since after the Bears game, going into that Packers game after Carson Wentz got hurt, maybe we make the playoffs. Maybe he makes enough of a difference, but I prefer to open it up and let Sam Howell do what he does. I didn't like that game plan against the Cowboys. I wish Sam Howell would have thrown it 30 plus times rather than just, I think, like 19 or something like that. I feel like he should have thrown it way more. We should open up the playbook and let him sling it, because that's what he likes to do. Now, granted, it is nice to have a great run game for a young developing quarterback, but let that be the compliment to him and not him be the compliment to the run game. You got to take the training wheels off these quarterbacks, man. It's a new league. I would understand if it was 10 years ago, but in 2023 and moving on, you got to be able to throw the ball. You have to, unless your running game is that elite, because only a couple of games we were actually efficient. We ran the ball a lot, but we only had like 4 yards per carry or more like a couple of times. Other than that, we were just running it over and over and over again and weren't necessarily getting a bunch of yards each time. But ultimately, it ended up working because our defense played at a very elite level, played like a top 5 defense a lot of the times during that win streak. And that's really it. In my opinion, that running the ball stuff first and second and then trying to throw it on third down is a terrible way to go about winning games. But hey, it is what it is. But in good news, Rivera said the Commanders will look into joint training camp practices and it might help with faster starts. I'm really excited about that. Please. Ron Rivera mentioned the idea of joint practices in response to the question about overcoming these annual slow starts and also with a lot of soft tissue injuries and things like that. So please, man, please, let's get joint practices done. Please. Thank you. I've been begging for that for years, man. I feel like we need to have joint practices every season. It gives you a heads up on the competition. You get some joint practices before even preseason comes. And instead of looking rusty in preseason and then sluggish in the regular season, you get some of those jitters out of the way in the joint practices. By the time the preseason comes, you're looking a little bit more crisp. And then by the time the regular season comes, you're ready to go. Go ahead and get that ball rolling early, man. Ron Rivera says he hates hearing people say about the Commanders that the Cowboys game is who they can be. He said, quote, "No, that's who they are," unquote. And I mean, I see what you're saying as a head coach, but you got to show me that that's who we are. You got to be consistent with that. And you should have started Sam Howell a long time ago to really see if that's who we are for real. Also, Rivera said, quote, "It's not always on the win-loss record to show you've grown or not," unquote. And that was him talking about the players and how much they've developed. When asked about going from 7 wins to 8 wins, is it a big step forward? Rivera said, "The play of our players is a huge step, especially the young players overcoming adversity." So even though 7 wins to 8 wins and not making the playoffs isn't a huge step record-wise, Ron Rivera feels like the development of a lot of young players was and is going to pay dividends further down the line. Also, when asked about Scott Turner, Rivera said he thought that he did his job and they will self-evaluate and go through the process. Very short and quick answer. Literally the way that you would answer it is if you were preparing to fire somebody. They said that they're going to work on a few things and they're going to talk things out for the next few days. They're going to meet with Dan Snyder and Tanya Snyder very soon as well. But the way he talked about Scott Turner today, the way he gave him the bare minimum goes to show that they're not bringing Scott Turner back. I mean, I already said this days ago that I'd be surprised if Scott Turner makes it through the week. And then that final answer right there just pretty much solidified it. I mean, that was really bad. I mean, he gave Scott Turner no help. Even for another team looking to hire Scott Turner, Ron Rivera did him no favors. I mean, it was bad. I mean, that was pretty much the least you can say about a guy, honestly. And even just going back to the team, man, I mean, this whole injuries derailing our season, I mean, granted, sounds nice, and defensively I could kind of see it, but offense, I mean, you just mutilated the Cowboys without Brian Robinson. So acting like, especially Carson Wentz wise, that our offense wasn't working because Brian Robinson wasn't there in the beginning of the season is not a good enough excuse for me. Plus, if your excuse is one running back getting hurt and now we can't function on offense, then you have a big structural problem and depth problem, and you just have a bunch of problems in general that you need to address. We shouldn't just be Brian Robinson away from not being able to put up 20 or more points per game, no matter if it's Carson Wentz or Taylor Heinicke, period. Again, we just saw in that last game against the Cowboys with a lot of backups versus the Cowboys starters and Brian Robinson not out there. When you threw Sam Howell out there, you had a different quarterback, how different it looked. Same offensive coordinator too, and I'm ready to move on from Scott Turner as well, but you see how we moved on from Taylor Heinicke and Carson Wentz to Sam Howell would happen. But speaking of Carson Wentz, Rivera said that the evaluation process that led to Carson Wentz trade last year was the right process, and quote, "Sometimes things happen that are unforeseen," unquote. And he added that injuries didn't help, which is my point that I just brought up. And I think this is a terrible answer because, first of all, how are you going to act like Carson Wentz failing is an unforeseen thing? Like, we're just, oh, we don't know what happened. We did everything we could. Carson Wentz should have been a sure thing, and then bad luck happened, unforeseen events happened, then now we are where we are now. Like, that's a terrible answer, man. Just go ahead and take blame. Go ahead and accept blame. You messed up. It's that simple. Don't act like it's outside factors like bad luck and bad juju as to why Carson Wentz didn't work out. Ron Rivera defended the process that resulted in the Commanders trading a second and a third and $28 million in cap space for Carson Wentz. Now, at least that second became another third. So now it's 2/3 instead of a second and a third. But his quote, sometimes things are unforeseen, unquote, is crazy because I feel like as fans, we saw it. It wasn't unforeseen for us, but it is what it is. Rivera states the obvious with Kam Curl, that he is important to the defense, but passes on stating unequivocally that there will be an extension. I'm pretty sure Kam Curl is going to stay long term. I wouldn't worry about that. But apparently Rivera is trying to do some leverage thing with his agent where he doesn't want to fully disclose the fact that they would love to bring Kam Curl back, which I don't really get because you went and said all of that about Daron Payne just now. But Kam Curl, oh no, we can't compliment him. We can't talk about trying to bring him back in a contract because that would be too much leverage for his agent. I don't know. And honestly, it doesn't matter what you say to the media at this point. It doesn't matter what you say to Kam Curl or his agent. We've seen enough with a large enough sample size this past season that when Kam Curl is out there, this defense is completely different from when he's not. Other than this Cowboys game, when Kam Curl hasn't played, this defense has allowed the most points it's allowed all season, pretty much every game that Kam Curl wasn't out there. And it's just like, if you wanted to have leverage against Kam Curl's agent, maybe Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera, you coach up the defense to play better when Kam Curl is out there and not make it so obvious of how important Kam Curl is to this defense. That happened on the field. Nothing you said in this media day affected that. I mean, this answer was terrible, bro. Did you really think that Kam Curl's agent think that the Commanders may even possibly think that Kam Curl isn't a big factor on this defense? It doesn't matter what you say to the media. We saw it on tape. But at the end of the day, Grant Paulson puts it in great words. That was the most buttoned up and guarded Ron Rivera year-ending presser of his tenure. I'm not sure he said one thing that will make headlines in 30 minutes of Q&A. I'm sure that was the plan and he executed, stuck to the script, didn't show his hand on a single off-season topic. Now, the only reason I would push back a little bit is because I'm really interested in that joint practice thing. And then I had a lot of disagreements with a lot of the things that they said. But yeah, at the end of the day, man, they said a lot without saying anything. They pretty much just got up there and babbled for almost 30 minutes. They ain't say not a near thing, but it is what it is, man. Again, the biggest takeaway I take away is the joint practices thing. That's the biggest and probably the most headlining type of news you could see. But also there were a lot of troubling things that they said, like not taking blame and credit for the whole Carson Wentz thing and trying to act like Kam Curl is not important to the defense. There are a lot of things they said that I definitely disagree with and deserve rants on. 20 minutes each individually, but I tried to consolidate it all into this 20-minute video. But either way, man, that's the end of this video. Please make sure you like this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. I appreciate all of the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose names you see scrolling on the screen right now. Please leave your comments in the comment section about everything we discussed in this video. I already know y'all gonna get on Ron Rivera's head for a lot of the stuff he said, because y'all know me, I'm not even the type to really complain about Ron Rivera like that. But a lot of the stuff him and Mayhew said today was just absolutely ridiculous. So I already know the comment section is gonna be on fire. But I appreciate all the support. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.